I am so happy that we are here together. Oh, it's a blessing when we are able to not just record, but speak about what matters on a big scale. And mental health is something that is very, very important to me. And having Joseph and Daphne here so that we can talk about something that is pretty spectacular. And that's the many, many, many forms of where we go with others: compassion, pity, empathy, sympathy, boundaries, comparative suffering. We are going to tap into some of those. There's no way that we can talk about all of that in one single episode. And we want to have some fun along the way. Fun is what matters in our day to day. We were talking about the importance of humor and mental health and laughing along the way. And then, gee, we better hit record because we got some good stuff that's been happening. We were talking about the feeling of joy and how joy is more than just a fleeting moment. It's a feeling that you can develop in your life once you decide that you want it. I think that's one of the biggest challenges in change is deciding what it is that you want. So when we're looking at suffering, we all go across that, don't we? If you think about your biggest suffering this year, can you nail it down to one area, one macrocosm in the big, one microcosm in the big macrocosm? Joe, is there one for you, sir?
Uh, well, I don't know about that, but like I was saying in the pre show, I can never pass on bad puns. So, couple, you had said fun. I said, well, if you listen to my ex wife, I'm absolutely no fun at all.
Mhm.
She thought I was
Yep.
fun at one point at least, but anyway. And the other thing is your how you say exponential joy as your
Hmm.
tag there. So
Yeah.
I'm going to call you joy to the 10th power.
Well, and that's what it's all about. It's about expanding feelings and energies. And you were talking about your ex-wife, and we've all got relationships that have ended, some on a good note, some on a sour note. And that was a big challenge for me this year, was working through endings of relationships. I ended my relationship with corporate Canada and stepped out into a different way of being, whereby my health and my welfare, my self-care, it took a front row seat because I wasn't taking good care of it before.
Right.
Yeah.
And as the oh, and for those tuning in, it was great meeting you the other day at Miss Liz Tea Time reunion. So I
Oh yeah.
wanted that's where we've met each other, and it's like on a plane, right? The adage they make the announcement in an emergency. I I needed to take a nap earlier. I didn't, so my brain's foggy. But in the event of emergency, right? And the oxygen masks drop. What do they tell you?
Mm-hmm.
Apply yours first.
Yeah.
If you don't take care of yourself, you can't help others. You're useless to others.
Mm-hmm. And it becomes a spiral. We don't realize how quickly we can spiral into that space where we're falling back into habits that aren't necessarily for our best. And one of my greatest addictions in life has been codependency. So I work very, very hard for others. And I did it again. It was like that Britney Spears, oops, I did it again. And
Since we were talking about music pre-show too, so yeah.
that's right. That's right. And we all do it. We all do it. Daph, what about you? What was one of your struggles this year?
Well, one of my struggles this year too was being in that place of putting others before myself first. And I mean, for years and years and years, I've told people, You need, like you said, Joe, take care of yourself, because you're no good to anybody else if you don't take care of yourself. And for years and years ago, when I used to work in the bank, I would tell people, do what you love and everything will work itself out. And I never did it until one day I decided to leave corporate America like you and take care of me so that I could be more for others. So I could give from an empty cup as well. So, I would say, like we were just talking about pre-show too, this year is done, and time, like, I'm not sure where the year went. And I've been blessed with so many amazing opportunities in different ways of different things. And I am grateful for all of it, the good and the bad, because I've learned from the bad lessons on moving forward for what I'm going to do next time. So, one of my biggest struggles was, I guess, just putting myself out there too much for too many all at
Yeah.
once.
I don't know who it is, but whomever said there's never really anything as a bad experience, but an opportunity to learn, right? And you don't learn anything if you stumble through life and everything goes great. Coasting through life. I mean, coddled and cushy existence where you're never challenged. And then if a challenge comes, a big challenge, as
Yes.
opposed to all those small ones that shape your character, um, then you can't deal with it. I like to. We talk music and we talk books pre-show. I also like to interject things through movies. It's like Star Trek Five, I think it is. The one we learn about Spock's stepbrother that we never knew of for 25 years. But all of a sudden we meet Spock's stepbrother, and he's using the Vulcan mind meld to take away people's pain. Let me help you. It's the episode where they're going out on a journey to seek God, more or less. But let me take your pain. And like Kirk says, I don't want you to take away my pain. I need my pain. It makes me who I am, who I've become. Without that, I'm not the person I am today.
I agree so much. And like you were talking about that, the coddled child, the child that has not had to experience as many of the challenges and opportunities. And I know that we want to protect our children, we want to protect our mates, we want to protect our friends from not having to hurt, but it is through the struggle that we learn. So, Daph, let's throw this one at you. What's
Okay.
the most effective way to be in connection with and in service to someone who is struggling without taking on their issues as your own?
Okay, so for myself, I'm not speaking for anybody else, but for myself, what I like to do when people come to me and say that they're dealing with things is I try. Oh, sorry, I just gotta fix this because.
As she's doing what she does to help people, and we'll talk about that in a minute because it's super cool. Super cool.
But what I was gonna say is, I like to share from a place of not saying, not telling people not telling people what to do, but from a space of, I dealt with something like this myself, and this is what I chose to do in that situation. I like to give people options and choices, different things that they could try or do. Like, I remember I worked with one gentleman who was very, very down on life and very depressed. And I asked him, when was the last time you tried something new? And he said he had no idea. I said, so pick something, anything, doesn't matter what, just something that makes you happy that you love to do. Go spend time and do that. And if you don't like doing that, then pick something else. And now I believe he's leading some like he's volunteering his time and leading some group for some PTSD survivors or something like that. I can't remember. But that's what I do. I tap into my own experiences of things that I've gone through, so to be empathetic of I hear what you're saying and I understand.
Hmm.
I
I
think
dealt with this, and this is how I handled the situation. But you could try this, or you could try that, or it's your choice.
right, and I think it's important at times, like my book Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You. There's a suicide prevention sub-thread in it because something I'm not happy to say, proud to say, I like talking about, but I feel compelled to admit I am a suicide attempt survivor. 2004, I attempted to take my life. You don't know what tomorrow will bring until you carpe diem. And I dare not ever say to anyone else suffering depression or going through, I know what you're thinking or
Right.
I know how you're feeling. No,
Yeah.
no. That tunes people out, that turns them off, that
Yep.
it's in a way almost feels like you're belittling them.
Yep.
That but you can say, I've been through something maybe somewhat similar. I've been in a similar situation. Everybody's situation is different, but I went through this so I can relate it
Yep.
in some empathetic or sympathetic way to indeed what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and things like that.
I agree
I've
with
never
you.
served, even though I'm wearing a military tribute shirt
Yeah.
myself. I wear medical tags, not dog tags. Those suffering PTSD. So I felt it important to put that in my Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You book. And like I said, relating things to movies, all life has value. Clarence, It's a Wonderful Life, right? We're just coming out of Christmas. It's a Wonderful Life. I just saw It's a Wonderful Life 2 days ago at the local theater on the big screen again. Great to see it on the big screen again. But right, Clarence isn't going to show up and show you what life would be like without you. But you could be someone's Clarence and remind them that It's a Wonderful Life is a very overly dramatic movie to make a point. You may not stop someone from poisoning someone. You may not literally jump in a pond and physically save someone else's life who then goes on to other things. But there are countless little things you may do that you don't realize amount to so much in other people's lives. I also like to joke about the old Pantene commercial, right? You tell two people, they tell two people that sooner or later you got a movement, right? It's like curing cancer. I help someone who then has a child who then goes on to cure cancer. It wouldn't have happened without them, but they wouldn't have been here still without me. So, in a small part, I, you, others play a part in the curing of cancer.
Well, if we could just talk for a minute, Nancy, if you're okay with it being
Mhm.
open and honest about how when we initially met, where you were at in your life.
Oh, I was at a real low. I was at a very, very, very low in my life. Daphne and I met, let's say about 10 days, 2 weeks before Christmas. And it was the year after the year that my daughter passed away. So my daughter passed away in August, and it wasn't that Christmas, it was the following Christmas, the second Christmas, which is different than the first Christmas because the first Christmas we are often quite busy. Perhaps it's making arrangements we're still working through. The smile and make everyone happy phase that I was in. This wasn't the case though. I'd gone to a vision board workshop with Daphne, and we were both supporting a friend, and I didn't want to be there. I had created a vision board 2 days before my daughter died, and part of my vision board was wanting more time without kids. I wasn't too pleased with this whole manifestation situation of life because I blamed myself. That was part of my journey. So Daphne was there being her usual fantastic, bubbly self. And I thought Daphne had Down syndrome because how could anybody be that happy all the time? I was the seething, resting bitch face in the back of the room. And I bought some jewelry from Daphne. Actually, this is one of the first pendants first necklaces that I got. She's restrung it in the many years. So everybody got either a necklace or a bottle of tequila. And I was like, okay, Christmas is done. Can we get on with this? Because I didn't want to be in that existence. You were talking earlier about suicide prevention. And before Emily's death, when I was going through the life of living in an abusive, battered relationship, I looked at the headlights and swerved in once and then swerved out. After Emily passed away, I was more homicidal than suicidal because I was filled with hatred and rage. So the different places that we're in, I think we can say things like, wow, that's hard. I get it.
You were kind of stuck in that anger phase. Rick Springfield, who I mentioned in the pre-show, one of my favorite artists. Yeah, I wish I had Jesse's. To me, that's one of his worst songs he's ever recorded. He's got an album based on loss and tribute to those who have lost, a concept album called Shock, Denial, Anger, Acceptance, various stages of grief. You're talking about that anger phase. So that's, that's it's important to understand that there are the various phases and that we not get stuck or trapped in one.
Well, and that's where I'm circling back because, you mentioned how you help, hypothetically speaking, you help someone who then goes on to have a baby, who then goes on to cure cancer. Well, I was blessed. Nancy and I were blessed to connect and meet when we did. And then we parted ways. And then we came back together because we were, Facebook friends. And she said she was going to do something because of the pain in her arm. And I said, don't let me help you. And then we came back together, But I'm not saying that because I know Nancy's done a lot of work, but I feel
there's
blessed.
Many layers, though. There's many layers. Think of all the characters in the story of our lives.
Yeah. And I feel blessed to be a part of yours.
Yeah, and Clarence says in the movie, It's a Wonderful Life, one never knows the amount of other people's lives one touches. It's unfathomable. It's beyond us. People we don't even know or interact with, a lot of times we can affect. It's why I feel important to do a show like this. But also, I'd like to say, no matter how serious things get, we need to keep a sense of humor too. Like in Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you, very serious topic. There's a comic relief chapter that makes the point. We're going to be bald in the corner, sucking on our thumb, crying all day if we don't keep a sense of humor. So a joke break. Back to the pre-show. For the sake of the audience, I will re-ask Daphne how Scooby and the rest of the Mystery Van gang is doing.
Like I said, that was years ago, so put on a few extra pounds, had a baby, it happens.
Well, and in those moments where we see someone struggling, when someone falls down, you reach out and give them a hand, ask if they'd like a hand. There's many opportunities to reach out and help. Sometimes being in the room with them, listening. One of the greatest acronyms.
Listening can matter, and sometimes I joke about the joking thing, but seriously, just a smile can make a difference in someone's day. I'm called Jokester Joe on Savage Unfiltered. I'm host of my own show, Constitutionalist Politics, but I'm co-host called Jokester Joe on Savage Unfiltered podcast. And my puns are lame, but a cringe internal kind of, oh my God, that's a bad joke, still, still can make someone's day. Get them out of their funk.
Hmm. Oh, for sure. For sure. When I was in my funk, I remember we celebrated one of the anniversaries of my daughter's passing by watching the Jackass movies over and over and over and over and over. And the fails. I mean, it was something other than. And when you make it moment by moment, breath by breath, minute by minute, there is so much that you can overcome.
Get out of your own head. Watch something stupid like a Jackass movie, right?
Yeah. Well, and that will get you to the next person, the next place, and the next thing. Like Daph was saying earlier, behind her, she's got all these funky lights and stuff, and we both have the funky lights. Hers are just she's got a better setup than I do. Such a show off. Joking. But the light therapy that we use, the scalar wave energy, I mean, there isn't a day that doesn't go by that I don't use it on myself.
Yeah,
Yep.
I have a sun
You have to.
lamp
Yeah.
over there because I have health issues, so I just don't get out much. So, and I know the importance of that, those rays, those X-rays, those rays of sun even is
Yeah.
simulated to avoid what? SAD, seasonal affective disorder,
Yeah.
depression, anxiety. It's important.
It is. I mean, that's why the sun and the moon exist. And the photons that our body needs to be able to continually develop, there's a lot of photons that we need. And we are in a crisis and a shortage of that. Just look at the mental health. Look at the mental health. It's an
Yeah,
epidemic.
well, here's another bad joke. I'm a little overweight, so I'm beyond the faux ton. What comes after a ton?
Good one. Good one.
I got a million of them, and they're all just as lame.
Well, at least you're consistent, right?
I like
Consistency
to
is
joke too
important.
because I've got more than 3 dozen copyrights, but I've only got 3 books currently internationally available. My middle one being it's kind of blocked by my name on my background. How to write a book and get it published, hints, tips, and techniques. And I like to joke in there that, uh, because everybody's got a story.
Mhm.
You can get published nowadays and get your story out there and help other people. So I try to help other people get their stories out. But I like to joke that I'm way too clever for metaphors. I use meta sixes.
I like that.
I'm
That's
gonna
really
remember
good.
that one.
That one's really good.
Just
Well,
remember
and
where you got it when you
yeah,
steal
well,
it. Yeah,
You bet. You bet.
that's a Joe original.
that's
Yeah,
a joke. There's actually a band. There was a band in Canada that was called Metaphor, and they were a heavy metal band. So that's really quite funny. Yeah, that's. I might remember that in the.
yeah. And
The
here's
fast
another
forward.
lame pun, a Shakespeare joke. This is in my Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You. Again, to make
Okay.
that point, you got to keep a sense of humor. To be or not to be, 'tis truly the question. Because if it's to be, I got bingo.
Ah, good one. Good one.
Another Joe
Well,
original.
you
Copyright
know,
2006. Don't you be stealing it.
and I
Yeah.
can guarantee that when you have, I mean, there's so many things that you've overcome in life, and I've stalked you just enough to get a good idea of what that is. But when we look at the challenges and difficulties of our life that are out of our control, we can choose to dismay about the cost of the rising
Whatever.
things. There are so many to choose from. Or we can talk about the political alliances. Gosh, there's so many of those. Or we can be a change in the life of another person. And the book that you have about how to become a published author, that could help somebody along the way.
Yeah,
That's
that's
an
why
incredible blessing.
I was on many shows talking about my Terror Strikes book, and many of them would say, "Why don't you just come back and talk about the writing and publishing process?" So I
Mhm.
say, "Sure." And after a couple dozen of those shows, I'm like, let me look on Amazon." And sure, there's a million books how to get your book on Amazon,
Yeah.
but nothing that really takes you from creative concept, writing, various aspects like scene development and character development, but also nonfiction books or even a memoir or poetry, whatever, then, what are your realistic publishing options? And
Mhm.
then you're not done. You've got to promote, marketing and promotion. And what about reviews? You got to have a thick skin. Not everybody's going to like what you write, but everybody has a story that they could tell that could aid others. There are
Well,
how 8 billion almost of us on the
there's
planet
a lot.
now
There's a
that
lot.
there aren't other people that are going through. Again, I'm not, I don't know, or I know how you're feeling, no, but
Yeah.
your similar situation or your life experience or
Yep.
your fictionalized story that can be based on reality even can
Mhm.
help others.
Absolutely. And all those books are available on Amazon?
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, Booktopia in Australia, I do real well. All over the place, internationally available. Yep.
Cool.
I hear what you're saying, Joe. I wrote a book called You Do You about my story, my journey, my life, and my experiences. But I had the beautiful Nancy write the foreword for this book. And at the end of each chapter, I ask a question. So really, it's not about me, it's about you because you can do the self reflection. So, and it talks about the different people different lessons I've learned in life and the different people that have helped me along the way. And hopefully I mean, I know that there's at least one person that's read it and loved it. And I'm so excited for Nancy because she's writing her memoir right now. I'm so
Yeah, and
excited
Yeah.
for
again, hopefully there's something potentially in there that someone can directly, indirectly, even remotely relate to,
yeah,
and hopefully get something from that from you. And again, it
The
doesn't have,
toothbrush scene. The
yeah,
toothbrush scene is pretty good. So
yeah, it doesn't have to be a memoir. It doesn't have to be real life. It can be, like I joke. Uh, I know a girl that works at Hooters. Okay. Uh, and I joke with her, she needs to write a book. I know another girl that works at Twin Peaks, which is, like I knew her from the MJR theater that I always used to go to. She
okay.
went over
Okay.
there. And I joke with her, she needs to write a book called Life at the Peak
Yeah.
about restaurant life. She
yeah,
can take all those wild, weird things that happen, fictionalize them, and people get an insight and a behind the scenes into other people's lives
yeah.
or their things they're going through, and hopefully laugh or cry or all of the above with her experience, or again the fictionalized story, like it's in the old Dragnet of the 60s and 70s. The names have been changed to protect the innocent, right?
Names of the innocent. Yeah. Well, and taking pen to paper is very healing.
Mhm.
Self
Going
cathartic. It can be
oh,
self cathartic,
very
yes.
self cathartic, and then the process of having someone edit it, having people read it, having the great admiration, and then the naysayers and the haters. I mean, it's a big, big, big
If
It's
thing.
funny
I
you say
knew,
that because I was just on I'm on 15 different social media platforms. You can virtually find me anywhere as at J Lenard Detroit. And I, of course, somebody who didn't like my book, hadn't read it, of course, but just knew they didn't like it for whatever reason, engaging in ad hominem attacks on me and the book, and which again, in How to Write a Book, I talk about reviews. Again, not everybody's going to like your stuff. Just understand that. Have a thicker skin and don't get upset and fluff it off. But I found that hilarious that they were droning on, and my reaction was, thank you. You're just helping me sell more books by drawing attention to the book, and that you clearly are just attacking me because of some perceived stereotype of what you think is in the book rather than actually what may be in the book, right? Because I've interviewed with Dawn Williams of The Research Show, black, female, Muslim, American, but yet, of course, since my book is on terrorism as the main thread, I like to say it's not about death, it's about life and living. That's just the storyline that weaves all the sub-threads together. It's about a lot of things. But, of course, what do they all want to say? I'm Islamophobic. It's a book on terrorism. I must be Islamophobic. You've not read the book. Tell Dawn Williams, again, black female Muslim American. She's got no problem with my book because she's actually read it.
Well, we all have to be able to see through different lenses to appreciate different things. And that's why the whole world doesn't like Twizzlers.
Yeah, not everything is for everybody. And again, the old assume, right? You make an ass out of you and me, right? Yeah. We got to try to always remember not to make those assumptions and look at what things actually are. Because my book is about, I like to say, I wrote it down so I get it right. Yes, about terrorism, but not a book about death, but life and living. Life over death, hope over fear, faith over despair, love over hate. But people assume it's a book about hate. It's not. Good over evil, individualism over collectivism, freedom over tyranny, family and friends, life. Again, not about death, but people will make that assumption until they read it. And, I've got a page, terrorstrikes.info/reviews. Most people run from their negative reviews. I share several negative reviews on that page. So, I try to give a fair and balanced, again, that it's not for everybody. We're all different. We're all unique. We're all individuals. Individualism over collectivism. Martin Luther King Jr. Content of one's character. And that's an important message in the book. We need to look past stereotypes and perceptions and, back to that word, assumptions we make.
So, Joe, can I ask you a question? Circling back to the, being empathetic and being, there for people when they're not in a good space. What is, I know you spoke of how, you can say, I can relate and I can do, I hear what you're saying and I can relate. What's one thing, what would be the one top thing that you like to do to let people know that you're there? Besides, of course, listening like you do.
Yeah, but the listening and the lame puns, right?
Oh, the listening and the lame puns? Okay.
To get them out of their funk, the smile, the lame puns, even a cringe helps. And I go into this in the book, Patch Adams, right? We've all learned laughter is the best medicine. Well, I don't know about that. It's not, laughter itself isn't going to cure cancer. And I also mentioned Schrodinger's cat. You can't do a study the cat cannot be both alive and dead at the same time, like Schrodinger says. Unless if you're taking twins, which would be cruel, if you could find twins suffering the exact same cancer and treating one strictly with medicine and treating the other with medicine and the laughter to try, because it's chemical. The endorphins, the chemical reaction in the brain. Patch Adams has indeed shown that to be true, that laughter is important. It has healing effects.
Well, I have to say, over Christmas, because many of us have spent much time with our family. My brother, I don't get to spend a lot of time with my brother, but he was there for Christmas, and I don't know what it is about him. He's 11 years younger than me, but we get laughing so hard, my face goes red, I can't breathe, but I always feel so good after. Like it was one of those things. But now, so Nancy, what do you like to do to help people, from a place of compassion and a place of empathy?
Oh, it's changed so much in the last 3 months. One of the things that many people don't know about me is that I am working on completing my studies as an end-of-life doula. So people hear doula and they think, oh, great, babies. And I'm like, no, it's the other end of the spectrum. So one of the greatest things that I learned was the acronym of WAIT, which is why am I talking?
Oh, I thought you were talking about obesity. Boom,
No,
boom. The other kind of weight. No.
but we
Joking
get
aside,
WAIT.
yeah,
So
joking aside, things like that are
allowing
important.
someone to just speak. I'll sit there for an hour and listen. And because I started working with animals first, I was listening to people talk about their animals because I'm helping people work through the transitionary period of their constant. When your animal that has been in your life for 15 years is moving in the other direction, wow, that's big. And then afterwards, when people want you to get over it and get a new puppy, it don't work that way. And then this one, I want to pop this one up there because this one is really interesting. Compassion is not rescuing. It's also not pity. Pity is a near enemy of compassion. And near enemy is a Buddhist terminology. See, I was raised a Christian, but I'm a theologicalistic person. I read everything. So if I hear something, I want to know more. But near enemy, look at what that says. Like it undermines. Like it's this annoying, because when Daphne went through a near-death experience, and I wonder, Daph, how did pity piss you off?
Well, okay. So, Joe, do you prefer Joe or Joseph?
Either's fine.
Just don't call you late for dinner.
Yeah, and just to be clear for people who may not be seeing this on video, you can see my tag there. Joseph M. Lenard. It looks French. It's not Lenard. It's Leonard without an O. And I have to use my middle initial because there is a Joseph Lenard who is also a Christian author. So I got to make that distinction. But yeah, no, Joe is fine.
Okay, Joe. So Joe doesn't know this about me. When I was 15, I was involved in a near-fatal car accident, and I came back from a massive closed-head brain injury. Like, I mean, I'm talking serious. Like, they took me to the hospital and they wanted to harvest my organs, and luckily my dad said no. Okay, talking about humor right now. Okay, so they told my dad I was brain dead. My dad said, "Shit, she was brain dead before the car accident. She'll be fine. Hook her up to life support." I mean, I think it's funny, but people are like, "What?" But yeah, I mean, I was on full life support for 2 weeks, and when they unplugged me, they didn't expect me to live. And I stayed in a coma for another 4 days, and they didn't expect me to rehabilitate. They said I was going to be a vegetable for the rest of my life. So I think for a potato, I'm doing not too bad. But I mean, going through my rehabilitation, of that, it's like the stages of grief, right? You got to go through the stages of rehab from a brain injury. And Yes, pity pissed me off to no end. It was like, leave me alone, I can do this. Even if I couldn't do it, it was like, leave me alone, I can do this. And then I'd
Right.
try and do it and I'd fail. I'd be like, okay. So then I had to figure out a different way that I had to rewire my brain so that I could do it. And let me tell you, there's lots of things that I do a lot different than a lot of people, but I can do them. But yeah, pity definitely pissed me off.
Yeah. You and
Which,
I have that in common. It's an odd. I was in a crash when I was young, and
mhm,
I literally was dead and was resuscitated on scene.
yeah.
And I don't remember any of it. I don't remember like 15 minutes before, even leading up to the accident, and I was in a coma for several days.
Yeah,
And
I don't remember that day at all. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't remember that day at all.
Well, and trauma. I mean, that's humanity's experience unless you're in a bubble. And even if you're in a bubble, it's still traumatic because you can't be with other people. And whether it's actual trauma or the trauma of the thought, because we can think ourselves into a very, very terrible place. We can
Oh, yeah.
imagine, oh gosh, we can imagine such brutal, brutal things.
Well, and like I've said before to you, Nancy, when I was in the hospital and I didn't want to be there anymore, you know, you helped me come up with the phrase. Was it either Google or God that helped me figure it out? But I just did what I had to do to get out of there.
Yeah.
And I just did the work that I had to do so that I could get out of there and went on my merry way. I mean, it wasn't a merry way. There was struggles, there was hurt, there was, sadness, but I did what I needed to do for me so that I could do what I'm doing now. And I mean, I thought for sure that I wanted to, work in the rehab field and with people with disabilities so they could, live better lives and get on. And then I realized that not everybody wants to get better. So then I changed careers. I went from rehab to the banking world, which is a completely drastic different, whatever. But then I started doing my stuff. I started creating jewelry for me so I could feel better. So the crystals could help me feel better. Then I found these cool lasers and the sacred geometry tools for me so I could feel better. And then I started sharing them with you and everybody
Yeah.
else. And
it
that's
go,
how Daphne's Healing Hands came about.
yeah,
Period.
it goes back to the plane, the oxygen mask.
Yep.
You've got to help yourself first, and through that, you found a way that you can share those things that helped you that then helps others.
Yeah.
Always,
That's
always.
circling back, right? That's what we
Yeah.
do. We
Massive
always circle
opportunity.
back to those good parts of helping ourselves first, because if we don't help ourselves first, we can't help anybody else. We're no good to anybody else.
Absolutely.
And I mean,
I
there's
love I love how when we show up at a party, Daph, the question quite often is, "Did you bring the laser? Hey, Nance, you got an essential oil? Maybe a tea." It definitely beats the previous life of "Hey, Nance, you got a line?" It's changed. It's changed a lot. It's changed a lot, and I have the ability to see within others that they are struggling. It's not like I'm going to bring it up at the party, but I see you, I hear you without even saying anything.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No,
And a lot of times, like you said, it's important to not directly take that on
for sure.
and directly go at it. Just try to be subtle about it, right? Because you can clearly see they're having a hard time, and sometimes you try and get, oh, gee, you look like shit. Tell me about it. Yeah, that's gonna help. How?
Yeah.
Well, Joe, like somebody said to me years ago when I first started, hey, and it's 4:44 our time. Anyways, um, somebody said to me years ago, Daphne, what happens when you go to the park with the bread to feed the birds and you chase the birds around the park with bread? Here's a bread, here's a bread, here's a bread. They run away. But if you sit on the bench and you toss out the crumbs to the birds, what do? They come. So I decided to take care of me and have people come to me and say, what are you doing, Daph? What did you do to take care of that? That's how I do it.
It goes
Um,
back to the shock, denial, anger,
yeah,
acceptance, too.
yeah.
Uh, Someone in the shock or the denial or the anger isn't going to come to the acceptance until they're ready to
Yeah.
move on. And screaming at them, well, why are you so angry? Got to stop being. It isn't helpful. You've got to try to move them in subtle ways, truly caring and hearing and listening, like you're talking about, to understand, okay, they're there, and maybe I can do things to help move them subtly, not confrontationally, because the confrontation can make matters worse.
And this is where I want to compliment Nancy because Nancy is an amazing chameleon. Me, not so much. Nancy, on the other hand, can meet somebody, for the very first time,
Mhm.
and they just instantly fall in love with her because she meets them where, I mean, I do too, but she's
Well,
smoother at it than I am.
but my life brought me to that point. I lived for 25 years in an abusive, battered relationship, telling the whole wide world I was fine.
Yeah.
So I got really, really good at that. And I read, oh my God, my library is fierce. And I'm looking forward to getting a signed copy of some of them books that you got. Just saying. I'm a voracious reader. So when I was in my marriage and I decided to go back to university, I got 3 years in a psych degree. Then my a term paper came back, and on the corner it said F, and on the other corner it said I suggest taking creative writing. So I'm like, oh, creative writing. Where can I get into that? I mean, I went through a lot more of that. I mean, there was other things that were in my vocabulary about that professor, but they were right because I was very argumentative in my papers. So I just needed a different outlet. So the
And that's
hero's
like,
journey,
yeah.
the
Well,
hero's
and that was
journey,
like
tarot cards.
yeah. And that's like Joe was talking before we started, how everybody, or even, well, just recently, how we are each individuals and tapping into our own individual abilities, unique abilities to help shine for the world allows others to know that they can do the same.
Yeah, they missed the early joke where Nancy was saying how she's a psychic medium and I'm psychotic. I mean, a psychic large.
Yep, that one for sure. Well, and that's where I'm learning to speak more about what it is that I do. And I am a chameleon because I will show up depending upon what it is that spirit suggests for me. And I
Mhm.
learned that at a young age. I mean, the first time that I knew that people were fighting, I wasn't in the room.
Mhm.
So my mom said to me, Nancy, stop eavesdropping. And I wasn't eavesdropping. I just knew. I knew things. And then I
Yeah.
turned it off because it wasn't acceptable.
One
Now
of
it's
my
on.
one of my favorite TV shows was Patricia Arquette's Medium. Did you used
Oh,
to
yeah.
watch that show? I love that show. I wish they would bring it back. But anyway, because my latest book is Constitutionalist Politics,
Yeah,
which
I
is of
know
course.
that one I'm really interested in. I'm a big Daph, what am I?
But
I'm a card
my
carrying
point.
member of many, 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 many. I am not sorry that I am Canadian. Like I'm the whole Canadian I'm sorry thing. I'm like, for what?
But
Why
my
are we all so sorry?
Yeah, my point to that is that I'm a person of faith.
Yes.
I I get along with atheists. There are some Christians that I would have nothing to do with. They're just I can't deal with you. I don't hate anybody. It's just I can't deal with you. Stay away from me. But the because something isn't in the Bible doesn't preclude it from being real. There's a whole lot of things in the planes of this reality, let alone the beyond that, that we cannot comprehend or understand. It doesn't mean it isn't real.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a beauty in conversation, and if you bake the right kind of cookies, I'll stick around for a long time.
Now
So
you're making me hungry. Now I want some chocolate chip cookies, and I need to head
oh,
over to Miss Liz's for some tea.
yeah, right. I'll eat any kind of cookie, and I make some mighty good tea. So we'll be sharing more of that as we go along in our relationship, because when we open up and we become more relatable, then we can always find something to talk to somebody about.
Oh, and
Always.
that's another thing, right? So many get power and control over others based on division. And
Mm,
constitutionalist politics is about that. What can we find in common? What do we have we can come together on? Not focusing and being pissed off and angry, hateful, spiteful
mm,
about differences. What can we come together on?
I like collaboration versus competition.
mhm. Yeah. Well, because we've all got the same shared human experiences of breathing, bathing, all of those. I mean, we all have a family that we love and adore, even if it's a familiar instead of a family, because some people have disconnected from their families. So they've created other families. So we all have a familiar. We can all come together in a mutual understanding that we want more goodness for ourselves and others.
What's that phrase? We all put our socks on one foot at a time?
Yeah. Yeah. Even if we only have one foot,
Right.
and the other one is a stump. You don't know somebody until you get to know them on a deeper level. And I don't just befriend anybody. You have my respect until you earn my disrespect. You earn my disrespect, and it's a whole different ballgame.
Right. And again, that doesn't mean then you cross over to hate. You don't. You just
No.
understand there are some people you're just never going to be able to deal with, never be able to get along with. And you got to agree to disagree and just agree to just not come together and constantly bash heads. Avoid them.
Well, and
That's
my
not,
dear friend,
that's completely different than hate.
my dear 97-year-old friend, 97 years old, she spoke such wisdom, and she asked about someone that I know, and I said that he was still going through the same battles in his life. And I said, much like your son battled in his life. And she said, oh, the tormented. Whew. I said, yes, the tormented. She's got this beautiful Irish accent. But that's what it can be in life. Those who struggle can be truly tormented. And what more can we give them than compassion and distance and boundaries at times? Got to do that. Again, the oxygen mask, right? Like, sorry, I can't
I
talk right now.
love
I'm breathing.
Yeah, I love that analogy. And whenever I bring that up anywhere, it's like a light bulb. It's like, oh my God, I never thought of that analogy, that metaphor, or as I like to joke, meta six.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I mean, like the Star Wars too, are like, I am not your mother. I am not your
Luke, I
mother.
am your father.
I got my son that mug when I was at Value Village. I am your father, and that's got Darth Vader on the other side of the cup. I mean, it's priceless. I love getting cups from thrift stores. I've got one that talks about a wanker. Um, there's days when people are wankers, and there's days that I'm not the best possible version of me
Oh,
either.
absolutely. Everybody's entitled to a bad day. That's why content of character, right? You cannot judge based on one encounter. We
No.
all can have a bad day, right? It's like another joke you were saying, or Daphne was saying, everybody meets Nancy and they immediately love her as well. I don't know what that's like because people usually think, God, what an asshole. I hate his guts.
Well, I mean,
Both ends of the spectrum.
both ends of the spectrum, right? You know,
Just a joke, people. Just a joke.
Ralph and I are going to be doing a lot of traveling, and this is actually going to air while we're on vacation. And one of the things that we love to do is sit and listen to people. Ralph's got this standing joke. He meets a guy in Mexico. His name is Jose. Ralph introduces himself as Hose B. And it just goes from there.
or
Same
or
line.
you're in Canada, so hoser.
Hoser. Oh, I will remember that.
Beauty, eh?
Okay. That's the common ground that we can come together
Yeah.
as we hold hands, honk horns, whatever it is. I mean, quite often I'm sitting there listening to something on the radio and I'm not paying attention. And there we go. Oh, there's tips behind me. Oh, is it time to go? Right. Thanks for honking. I appreciate it. It reminds me, oh, yeah, it's time to move. Because if we're not moving forward, we're backing into people's vehicles, causing trouble. Yeah.
Yeah. Reflection is different than moving backwards. We need to reflect at times. Again, going back to Star Trek V,
Yeah.
what we had, who we were, helped get us to where we are today, who we are now. And you can't forget those things,
No, no.
but you can't dwell on them either and regress and move backwards. Unless you're an asshole, you want to be the better person you used to be.
Assholes and elbows, everybody's got them. This has been fun. This has been fun. I'm looking
Yeah, well,
forward
I
to more of that.
hope people got indeed both some fun and seriousness out of this, but it wouldn't do us any good to just dwell on the funk, on the negative. That doesn't help people.
It doesn't. It doesn't. And there's lots of opportunities for help. There are so many as we continue to work through our mental health challenges. We can champion forward sometimes by just saying those words.
Yeah, and
I am
if
willing.
if you're in that bad space, seriously,
Yeah.
if we didn't help you today, if you're in that deep, dark space, the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-TALK. 1-800-273-TALK. Volunteers are waiting by. I'm not, I've taken psychology, but I'm not a mental health expert. They're their experts.
Yes. Yes. And that's where reach out to someone. Reach out to
Oh,
someone.
that reminds me. I used to play hockey when I was younger, so I watch a lot of NHL games on Dish Network. I have the Dish, so I get the ice center ice package and watch games
Okay.
from all over the country. And a few of the hockey teams have great PSA called "Embrace the Awkward," a commercial about you know I don't know what to say, but I know something's up with you. Just know I'm here. That's the point.
Mhm.
Embrace the awkward. I know something's not right with you. It can be okay sometimes to say that. I know something's wrong. No, I'm your friend and you can come to me. But as we've talked at other times, subtle intervention is better. You've got to try to read the situation.
I like to tell
Sometimes
people that
you
I'm here to listen.
Sometimes you bake a cake.
Mhm.
Bake a cake. Everybody likes cake, if not bake a cake and cookies, right? Like
You're
bring
making me
something.
hungry again.
I know. I love to bake. I love to bake. So yeah, yeah, be that person that you may need one day.
It's a true story. I
Yeah.
got supper cooking in the slow cooker. We made some moose stew, so I'm gonna go have some supper.
Mm.
Yeah, moose stew, like that ain't Canadian. Yeah. Boy, did you just stereotype yourself.
I couldn't help it. I thought it was a perfect way to end the show.
Oh my God, it absolutely is. So thank you so much for sharing this moment. Oh my God.
Thank you.
Love you to the moon and back. See you soon.
See you later.